Another week living on this earth, another week, Arsenal on top of the table. Welcome, welcome everyone to episode 9 of Debates Never Die. I am your host today, Malcom, aka the head of Paul Pogba's PR team. I am joined by two of my friends, both United fans. The first of whom I actually missed his debut on the pod, which pains me because I love this guy's the shit he has to say and the insight he gives. You guys know him as Thabani Mlalazi. We know him as the best super sub in the Premier League, Tyreek Lamptey. Thabani, how are you doing, my guy?
We're coming for you, Arsenal. We're coming for you. I'm good, man. Happy to be here for another episode. Another 3 points, another clean sheet for United. Look at that form guide. Look at that form guide. We're coming for you.
Nah. Look. It's the winners' pod today. Clearly, there's no losers around, so I'll allow the the gassed behavior. And then finally, we have T-Boy the Prophet, as he's known, or T-Boy the Expert, as he's known on TikTok. I'm happy that you've taken a break from debating delusional City fans, and you can join us on the episode. How are you doing, bro?
Bro, I'm calm. I'm blessed. United are back. Martinez is probably the best defender in European football at the moment. So I'm happy, bro.
Jesus Christ! So I'm in the land of the hyenas with these two United niggas pushing. Okay, Oaks. We always start off with weekend fixture reviews. Tabani, let's start with you, dude. Across, the top 5 leagues, including actually the PSL, because the Soweto Derby was this weekend. What were the biggest takeaway moments for you?
Okay, look, I've got three standout my takeaways from the weekend. One, Arsenal, credit where it's due. The show keeps rolling on. I've been a Mikel Arteta believer since day one. Low-key hacked that I'm being vindicated because Arsenal are doing really well, but credit where it's due, man. Second is Napoli. We have to talk about Napoli.
Yeah, no.
They seem like the most unstoppable team in Europe right now. And the biggest shock is that usually this sort of happens like 2-3 years in the making, but Napoli came out of nowhere.
Bro, can I interject there quickly? I was watching like a TikToker kind of, emphasize how incredible this is. And he broke it down by saying, imagine your team loses its top goal scorer in the history of its club, its best midfielder, its star boy, right? And then goes on because it lost Mertens, Fabian Ruiz, and Insigne. And then your best centre back in Koulibaly, and then you go undefeated. It's insane. It's unprecedented.
Nah, something at Napoli is happening that's bigger than all of us. And then my last one, shout out to my team, my local team, Kaiser Chiefs. Amakosi for life. Yusuf Mart, history maker. Halfway line goal. Like, first of all, look, we know the difference between European and SA football. But a halfway line goal in a derby, I mean, credit where it's due, man.
Facts, you're built different. I'm kind of out of touch with the PSL right now. How is Chiefs looking this season? Like, what are your hopes, your prospects?
Look, the PSL, make no bonds about it. There's one team that is drastically better than the others, who are struggling for a bit of form. Sundowns are still the best team in SA by a mile. They have continental ambitions. Richards Bay FC, newly promoted team, are doing super well. Chiefs and Pirates, if I can liken them to European teams, Premier League teams, they're giving United, and they're just teams in transition, but we're talking 5-6 year transitions. So a lot of false dawns, a lot of change between players. But I will say the league this season is at quite a high level in terms of just entertainment and quality. So you rarely watch a low quality game, especially games in the top 8 are really competitive. There's not much difference between, other than Sundowns games, positions 2 to 7. There's not much between those games, so it does make for a good show. And I think the league is, I wouldn't say in the best place possible, but getting healthier and healthier.
Nah, that's nice. That's nice to hear, man. Because again, like the last time I think I followed the PSL was 2018. And at that point, I think Sundowns was steamrolling everyone. So a more competitive league is always great for SA football. To go to T-Boy, bro, yes. This weekend, what was your standout moment, your biggest takeaways?
Yeah, so similar to Tab Soul, I'm going to have to go with 3. So first one being Chelsea, I think losing 4-1 to Brighton is quite crazy. I think when you look at it in the sense that they probably took like all Brighton's resources, their manager, I think they even take like their scouting, whatever, their scouting director. It's just, and then you go there and lose 4-1. Yo, that's just embarrassing. So I guess Chelsea. Number 2, I'm looking at Liverpool because it's just, I don't know what. See, but I hope you're all right, but I don't know what you're gonna do. Like, the thing is, now it's like a must. With their next game is a must win. So then, if they lose, what will they do? They got not this Napoli game, because they'll get smoked by Napoli. But I mean, the next Premier League game after that, like, it's very scary for them. And then I'm gonna have to talk about Newcastle, bro. Almiron, Joe Linton. These are like what Eddie Howe has done at that club is insane, bro. And I told people about Almiron long ago, but they didn't. They laughed at me.
Oh, here we go.
So I have to laugh now.
Bro, honestly, dude, whenever I think about Joe Linton, I just laugh because
he moved from a striker to a box-to-box centre mid.
I've never encountered that in my life ever.
The thing is, I keep saying to myself, like I said last season, like he's gonna get found out soon. But every game he's not getting found out. So I don't know what's like. Is this who he is? Is this his life now? So it's just
that just means someone lied. Someone lied. He lied or someone lied, because how can you go from like one of the worst strikers in the league, like, you dastard, and now you're a centre mid,
bro, and I may be personal bias from my own experience, but I think that is the most difficult position to play, and this guy is just he's just on fire.
On fire, bro. But the thing is, like, when we watch him, like, I don't know how to explain. He's just a presence. Like, when he's a ball carrying midfielder, technically, from like what I see. He's very good at like running with the ball, like fast pace and whatever. But I don't know. It just works. I guess his role just works in that system.
If I could give my 2 cents, sorry, to who I cut off there. The Newcastle model, I pointed this out like first 2 games of the season. I said, bro, the level of athleticism in that team and the way Eddie Howe has just set them up to just be a team in transition it's perfect for someone like Jarlinton. But the thing that's kind of resonated with me in the past few weeks is how much they're increasing with their ability to possess the ball. Like they're just progressively getting better and better, and the games are looking less like, open. I expected the open field, kind of like Liverpool 17-18, where it was I expected that, but now these guys are like possessing the ball. It's scary hours. They're in Newcastle.
He's not even playing yet. Isak is not even there yet, so
bro,
he's injured. So we'll see.
No, phenomenal. Tab, did you have something you wanted to say there?
No, I just much like Arsenal. Look, when United are doing well, I have lots of respect and lots of time for other teams. So we haven't even mentioned United. So I'm happy to dap Newcastle. I'm happy to dap Arsenal. I do think that Newcastle are in a bubble. I'm not convinced yet. There's evidence, there's signs. I understand why people are buying in. I'm not bought in yet, but I 100% agree with you. The team that Eddie Howe's put together, the way he's got these guys playing, I love Callum Wilson, and I think he's that mix between physical and dynamic up front. Yeah. You've got Almiron, who's really shown up. Shout out Jack Grealish for that, by the way. And the real Bruno stand up? Because the guy at United has nothing on Guimaraes. Honestly, that guy is a baller. So yeah, Newcastle really entertaining, man. Really entertaining.
For real. Truly, the Premier League is trending into some very, very competitive territories. On my end, the biggest takeaways were, man, I can't not speak about those frauds in North London, dude. What the fuck are Tottenham doing? Oaks, every weekend, Spurs find a way to, like, I know, like, when we did our beginning of the season picks, I had Spurs potentially at 2nd by December, right? And the reason I had them there is for, what I expected to what is happening, I expected to see, and that's why I had them as high. But I've never seen anti-football gone at this level of success. Guys, like, they are being blown away by every opposition they play, right? And you just can't knock them down. It's kind of scary for me because that's a team that's always had a bottle losers mentality, and they still have that bottle in them. But the fact that they can fight back, I'm being very mindful of that. So that game, I was fuming as it was on.
But does this not mean that they've lost that Spursiness if they're being able to fight back? Because this is the whole thing that they have never been able to do that.
But I think Spurs have been quite a decent team when it comes to fighting back. I mean, we saw with Pochettino, in the Champions League, both rounds against City and then against Ajax. Okay. So I think until Spurs are able to see a game through, I won't be stressed, because whilst the fighting back is definitely a characteristic of Conte, I think a bigger characteristic and what he's more known for is his ability to see games through. But with Spurs, it seems like they can't, they seemingly can't do that. So, that was the Tottenham takeaway. I mean, Arsenal, what more needs to be said? Reece Nelson, Jadon Sancho's big brother, but that's not really, that was a great win, a much needed win, but that wasn't one of my takeaways. Another one for me that really stood out was, sorry, I'm just having a look at the fixture list to remind myself. Chelsea against Brighton for the reasons Toby pointed out. But guys, do you not feel that something needs to be said about the boldness of Graham Potter? Because I think this guy's willingness to give every single resource in his team the opportunity to prove themselves is refreshing. Thabani, when last do you think you saw a manager in the Premier League that wasn't stuck in their ways when it came to this is my best squad? And do you think that Potter's approach of having essentially a new front, they play with the 3-4-3, a new front seven every game, do you think it's good signs, or do you feel he should just be focusing on winning?
So I look, there's two sides of this coin, and you raised the point over the weekend that essentially the unit that he was attacking with they have never played together as that unit,
Yeah.
And
never.
on the one hand, I wonder if he'd be doing this if he took over a struggling Chelsea, if they were eighth and they needed wins back to back. I think he's got the luxury of a points margin that he built for himself with that undefeated start, and it in a way it's encouraging because I think everyone in that team knows that there's a place to be fought for. What I do think is that he can do this until the World Cup, and then after the World Cup, he's kind of got to bed down his best 11, especially if they're going to push on in the Champions League and just push for points in the Premier League, because I don't think down the stretch you can have lack of clarity in your best 11. I'm yet to see it in work effectively, especially in the top 4 hunt. And I do think that at some stage, if guys aren't coming to the party, then Potter's got to decide. And he needs to know his best 11 by the time they resume after the World Cup.
Yeah. That's a very fair way. Toby, fair way to paint it. Toby, do you agree?
But okay, someone can refresh my mind. Potter joined. How many games in charge has Potter been in charge of now? How many games would we say?
Man, I want to say
including Champions League, like 10, no?
10. Yeah, I want to say 10.
So, but isn't this something that you would expect to see of a new manager coming to a squad with this much depth, like a lot of rotation, trying to find the best squad? So, he wouldn't really know yet what his best squad is. So, I'm not really sure. So, your point of him having a new front seven and new something like this. But isn't that something you would expect to see anyway, with a manager coming in the middle of the season?
I actually don't think so, because I say that because, yes, you would see some rotations, some alterations to kind of... So typically, this is my understanding of what a manager does. The manager comes in and he asserts the spine of the team. And that's typically a striker, a center mid and a center back, or if not a striker, one of your wings. And then you find different combinations to complement those players. So Klopp did that quite a lot when he came, with Coutinho being that guy. In the midfield, it was Milner initially, if I'm not mistaken. And then in defense, I want to say it was Daniel Agger or Sako in defense. I'm not sure. I may be misremembering. But now with Potter, the reason why I'm pointing it out is because, bro, it's like free lunch for everyone. Everyone in that team has a legitimate claim to be a starting player. And I think that's so good for competitiveness and for developing new narratives, a certain level of hope to permeate through the club. I always use Arteta as the reference point. The biggest criticism I have of Arteta is if you are in a Mikel Arteta team, whether or not you are a part of the haves or the have-nots. Like, and that can create complacency. It can, kill your depth. It can impact your ability to come up with contingencies on the fly. Like, I'm so happy Reece Nelson got the opportunity, but it pisses me off that he only got that opportunity when Saka got injured, because you need 60 minutes to assert yourself. The first 15 minutes, he really didn't do much. Now imagine those first 15 where he's lost 15. So now I look at Potter and I'm saying, yo, bro, this guy had the game before this, he had Broja starting as striker. This time round, it's Havertz and Sterling's playing as a hybrid left mid / left wing back with Pulisic on the other side, and then there's Ziyech coming in. It's just a really I agree with Thabani. At some point, you need to know who your starting 11 is, and I do think he has an idea. That combination of Aubameyang, Sterling, and Mounts was doing numbers, but I don't know, guys. I just think in this day and age, people are so afraid of affording people opportunities. It was one of my favorite things about Arsene Wenger, but to Tabani's point, maybe that's why my goat went out the way he did. And then just the last thing I want to point out about the weekend fixtures, Man United, that game against West Ham was very entertaining. Again, every week you can see the fundamentals Ten Hag is implementing in your guys' team and how you guys are growing. The only the cause for concern I have is what seems to be a lapse in focus at times, because West Ham were definitely running that game, for I'd say about half of that second half. You guys were the second best team on the pitch, but that will come with time. But the biggest takeaway, and I must actually commend the man, because I've always been very hypercritical of him since 2018, David De Gea, that man's ability, bro, to fucking weather the storm and to just keep showing up for work. I don't think there are many footballers in the world that have that guy's level of mental toughness, because those saves, Oaks, like, me, I always roast him TV dives. No. That save from Zuma's header, and then there was the strike from range from Rice, who's phenomenal. Let's also shout out Declan Rice and Kurt Zuma. Those are two fucking footballers right there. But you guys have a real custodian of your club. Whatever happens to him, I truly believe he's the most. There is no player currently playing not named Lionel Messi that is more deserving of legend status at a club than David De Gea, in my opinion. Obviously, there's Ronaldo, there's Ramos, but for me, it's the fact that this man, when he could have left, when the ship was sinking at United, he stayed, became your best player, had a bit of a shaky, period, and then found himself again, and he's like 33? Nah, hats off to David De Gea.
Yeah, man.
So I've known Malcom, I don't know how many years now. That's the nicest thing I've ever heard you say about De Gea, man.
Like, bro. there's no agendas here, dude. I respect professionalism, but hopefully I'll never have to do that again.
And just anyways, last point. Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
Marcus Rashford. He wants to spend his days on enjoyment. My goat. My goat. I told you guys, his movie is not ended. It's just getting started. He's scoring headers. Aye, bro, he's back. He's back.
Well, we need to investigate how many children are starving, because you guys may be killing kids, bro. Now he's focused. You may be killing kids. Oh, actually, gentlemen, I just realized something from our second point. We should change this podcast from Debates Never Die to Europa League Boys, because all of our boys, I wish Boo was here. All of our boys are in the Europa League, and that brings us to our next topic. Europa League boys, and the winner is. Can we actually, as a group, acknowledge the fact that the Europa League is low-key more exciting than the Champions League? Thabani, how are you feeling about the addition of Barcelona, Sevilla? Those are done, but potentially Atletico Madrid, Spurs. Spurs have a chance. Yeah, Spurs can still drop down. Ajax. Do you feel
as well?
Say that again. And Juve, but Juve should be there from the jump, bro.
No.
So, Tab, how are you feeling about, these juggernauts entering, and is the Europa League something that is more enticing for you to win because these big names are coming down?
I think Europa League, whoever wins it this year will deserve it. We've had a few where kind of, there's the best team makes it to the final, and then they just play the team that, like, made it to the final with them. But there's going to be some crazy knockout games. There will be some crazy round of 16 quarterfinal ties, with some big hitters. There's going to be some giants playing for real. And if you make it to that semi-final and that final, it's impossible to not have played at least one big team. But you're going to have, God forbid, a Juve Barca tie. There might be a United Arsenal tie. There's so many games there's so many big games that could happen from the round of 16 onwards. So yeah, whoever wins the Europa League this year will deserve it. What I will say is, it's a good and bad thing that so many big hitters are falling out of the Champions League. And I don't know if that's damaging for the Champions League as a spectacle, because ideally the ties that we're potentially getting excited about now for the Europa League, those are Champions League ties. United Barca should be a Champions League tie. Spurs and Arsenal in the round of 16, that's a Champions League little game. So you question, like, with the push for the Super League from one camp and the change to format of the Champions League, is the gap getting closer between the elite and the not elite, or are we in a stage where we really need to think about, like, the purpose of all these competitions? Because imagine the pull in the round of 16 when Madrid have an easy tie and Bayern have an easy tie, but it's all happening in the Europa League. That wasn't part of the plan. So yeah, something to think about.
But first things first, say it's a La Liga team. It's the La Liga's busted now, bro.
I wanted to actually just respond to that directly, Thabani. I think that's a great point you raised. I would say I'd have less issue with this, if the reason I believe that we saw these Champions League teams dropping is if the level truly did raise in the Champions League. But I feel like with the majority of these teams, the reason they're in the Europa League is because they're falling off. So to your point of it, like taking away from the Champions League, I agree, because if the lesser teams were performing at the clip of, say, Ajax from a few years ago, and Barcelona didn't make it through the group stage, that's fire, because then you're still going to have, enticing games later on in the round. But I don't know, man, like Juventus, it's like that they've been poor. Barcelona have been a bit unfortunate, but for the most part, they've been poor. But so I think that is a real thing we need to try and, obviously as fans, we have no power, but I guess it's something fun to ponder on. Is there really a distinction between these teams, moving forward? Now, Tobi, I want to come to you and get your point of view on Man United currently sitting second, because Thabani did mention about the round of 16 ties. But, sir, those are for teams in first place. You niggas in second have to go to the round of 32, where you are now susceptible to those Champions League third place finishes. So, Tobi, do you feel nervous, or since Martinez is the best centre back in the world, are you saying bring Barca, bring Juve, bring Atletico?
Bring them.
Bring that. No, like, honestly, bring them. There's not much. There's really not a lot to lose for us at the moment, bro. Like, let's say we get knocked out of the Europa League. Like, no, I don't. As a fan base, me personally, I wouldn't really care. Like, I feel like, as a club, we're at that process where there's bigger things we need to start worrying about, like the process, getting in the right players. So, like, if we get knocked out of Europa League, it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to be hacked. But personally, I wouldn't mind facing a team like Barca, Ajax, Juventus. I would be a little bit wary to face Atletico, just because I know, I just know those Oaks, bro. Like, they play, and these last few matches I've seen us at United against teams, I guess, that are very compact, or like, they're not really expansive. Like, we do struggle, especially with starting players like Ronaldo, where we just like, oh my goodness. There's this thing that he loves to do. Have you not noticed how he loves to like players like a false nine nowadays? Like, he loves dropping into the midfield and stuff. And then when we want to cross, there's literally no one in the box.
Yeah.
So like, it's just, but yeah, that's just what's one thing is pissing me off. But yeah, so I wouldn't mind playing, everyone other than Atletico personally.
So Tobi, I want to ask. So you're fine with potentially being knocked out of the Europa League, right? That's fair. But do you not feel that would then put a lot more pressure on finishing in the top four? Like, do you not think having that safety haven of, okay, we could win Europa and make Champions League, and also I think you guys are on like entering your fifth year of no trophy, so you kind of kill two birds with one stone? Are you saying that's not really something that's not a contingency you want to just go for top four?
Yeah, like, I don't know. This is just me again. I'm not speaking for all United fans, but I do not mind if this season we win nothing and we finish out of the top four, just because I know that there's a clear process in the works. Like, I can see we're trying to get certain people to come to the club, they're being sporting directors. The coach has got an idea. There's an identity within the team. Like, it's all a process. So it'll all come with time. You can't rush these type of things in terms of just winning trophies here and there. Like, that's not how usually things work. But your point of us maybe focusing on winning the Europa League is a good point. So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one for me, but yeah, maybe you're right. I guess we should probably
because, man, like having been in the place, having been in the place, United are in now, currently still kind of being in that same place. Whenever we're in the Europa League, I'd always look at that as a league a tournament I want to win, because that may just be me being a risk averse person. I didn't trust my Oaks in the, for good reason. Closeout stages, the Premier League season, things can pop off. Thabani, if a team I neglected to mention is back in the Europa League is Sevilla. And we know how those guys do in this competition. Yeah. So with that in mind, who are you banking your money on to go all the way and win this competition?
Well, first things first, thank God Unai Emery's nowhere in the Europa League. That's his competition all day long. I don't know. I think Arsenal know how to win football matches, and they are going into game weeks expecting to win. And if you comfortably win your group and comfortably win your round of 32 and round of 16 tie, they will go in. You bring anyone, and they will give anyone a run for their money. United, again, can I just contradict Tobi just very briefly to say that as much as I understand the patience, which is what we need as a fan base, we need to see a push. We need to see our team push and like really compete and show that when games are there and ties are there for the taking. So I wouldn't say it would be putting pressure if we didn't win. But if we don't win something now, like Sheik says, that's now 5 years without a trophy. You go into year 6, and patience will wear thin eventually. So I think a good Europa League push now, get to the semi-final, then lose to someone better than you. That's fine. But I put my back to go all the way. Not Sevilla. I think they're a bit too up and down. I think
good shout.
Arsenal's a very good shout. Ajax will cause problems, but I will just say I expect the final to be. I expect someone versus Arsenal in the final.
Yeah, I think Barca Arsenal, I think will be the final.
Oh my goodness, the vindication I would get if we won that game. But
unfortunately.
Honestly speaking, though, I'm also getting ahead of myself because we haven't qualified yet. We have quite a tricky situation where
Zurich.
We have to play FC Zurich. We have to field a good 11 because we fucked up again Arteta's decisions when it comes to squad selection. I have questions over. Just seems like he doesn't trust players. But if I could answer my own question, in terms of the team I see going the furthest and winning this competition, Arsenal is always tantalizing. We came close that year. Atletico knocked us out, but there's just something about this squad that I'm still not sure over when it comes to not necessarily big games where our backs are against the wall, but big games where we're expected to win. That's where I'm a bit uncomfortable. So the team I actually picked to go all the way is a bit of a wild card here, but I could really see Real Sociedad making quite a decent run. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up in the semi-final or the final. I've seen them play against you. They're a fairly pragmatic side. They're like obviously Spanish inclined with how they possess the ball and create chances. Not as dominant, but I just feel like a club like Real Sociedad, your conviction is going to be towards the Europa League. There isn't as much hesitation between, should I field this player? Should I field this player? It's like Europa League fixtures, we're taking them seriously. With Arteta, given how we're going in the Premier League, the question I ask is, okay, say we have, a big game against Chelsea a week before, or the weekend, or the week after we play United on the Sunday, hypothetically speaking. Do you play Rob Holding in that Europa League? Do you keep playing Rob Holding? Do you keep playing Nat Turner? What happened? So that's the part of it that makes me uncomfortable. So for that reason, I'm going with Sociedad. And the other team I'm looking, not necessarily expecting to win, but I'm expecting to also make a run is Barcelona, for the reason of squad depth, but also because I think Xavi, you're going to need to deliver something. You're going to need to deliver, as Toby's pointed out on the group and on his own TikTok page. There were certain assumptions made when a lot of these levers were activated. So I think, winning the Europa League, a deep run in the Europa League, could result in a lot of money for Barcelona. It also puts them in the position to play another cup competition at the start of next season, which is more money for Barcelona. So I'm actually going with the two Spanish teams, primarily for the reason of prioritization. I think their position in the Liga isn't as precarious, so I would actually go with those two. On the topic of the Europa League, do you guys have any closing remarks, or can we move on?
Yeah, I guess we can move on.
Keep it pushing. Okay, perfect. That is the funniest thing. That anthem, bro.
Listeners, we'll post it on the debates chat. You'll see that video. It's very funny, man.
The best, man. Okay, now we're going to have a conversation about super teams, because I'm sure you guys have been seeing this narrative permeating through social media over the past few weeks.
Yes.
A bunch of narratives pertaining to specifically Kevin De Bruyne and Alisson, the Liverpool goalkeeper, claiming that they are the best players in their position in Premier League history. And now, when I hear things like that, I think two things. One, you have to be 16 if you're thinking that. Two, I kind of get mad because I feel there is an inflation of influence, impact, and performance because of the teams these guys have performed in. Alisson this season, for me, has cemented himself more in that conversation because, Van Delegate is
Van Disney.
Van Disney's doing his own shit. But so that's that there I can hear. But De Bruyne, guys, before I sound like a complete hater, let me take this to Thabani, who is more comfortable being the hater than I. How do you feel about that conversation of De Bruyne being the best midfielder in the Premier League? And do you think him being in this super team for Man City takes away from his claims?
I don't think it takes away from his claims.
Yeah.
Okay.
But stop the cap. He's not. Guys, we're watching a different sport now. Football in 2022 is not how it was in 2012 or 2002. And what those guys were doing, I'm talking about the big three, particularly Stevie G, guys, like what he did in the Premier League as a midfielder for that team, like that, there is nothing like that today. I'm not saying there's a lot of KDBs, and there were KDBs, but just like to carry a team that is not that good, to carry a team that is that good, to be the most relevant player year on year on year on year. The difference is, and look, not my favorite argument, but City have won the league without De Bruyne, and I'm talking about recently. Like
you're going into the point I'm going to make. Yeah, carry on.
They've won leagues without. That's how good they are. Liverpool, anything that they achieved during Gerrard's time would not have happened without Gerrard. Fact. Whether they finished second, whether they had a title run, whether they were shit, Gerrard was there. So I think KDB, we need to find a better way to dap him. But to say the best of all time in his position, if the position is midfielder...
Can I interject quickly?
Of course.
What I want to ask Thabani is, is it fair that we under-dap him just because of the team he's in? Just because it's a super team does not mean that there's not game. For example, this weekend, his free kick made the difference, did it not? So when you look at it, he is making big impacts within this team. So,
100%.
But that's what I'm asking. So how is that a factor that, because Steven Gerrard, for example, would make that difference? But KDB is doing the same thing, isn't he?
So Toby, to kind of summarize your point, you're basically saying you have to play the hands that you're dealt. So
Yeah.
you can't you know, De Bruyne in his own context is doing what Steven Gerrard did for Liverpool. Is that what you're basically saying?
Well, obviously not to the same level, but I think
contextually, like he's doing the most he can do for Man City.
The most he can do, like he's adding goals, adding an assist, like, and just as I repeat again, this weekend 1-0. What was the difference? His free kick, and it was an amazing free kick. So like, it's not like he's just walking about just crossing the Haaland and the boys. He's adding his own input. So yeah.
Tab, your response?
I think what I don't want to get wrong is to position myself as a KDB hater. I love KDB. And
of course.
Literally, he's one of my favorite players that I've ever watched in history. But I do think, like I say, he's a niche player. He's more niche than he is, like, he's all-time great, but he's so, like, the hole that he fits in perfectly, right? And it's just a perfect storm of the right team, the right manager, and a super player.
Yeah.
To outright say the best of all time disregards some incredible achievements of those who've come before him. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, credit where it's due. Like, it's not his fault that he was signed by an incredible recruitment department in Man City. It's not his fault that he's managed by a manager that built a team that can win with or without him. That's not his fault. Yeah. And I'll dap him all day long for that. And he's a joy to watch. And like, to give Toby to his point, the guy's a difference maker in almost every match he plays. So it's not, I don't think the argument is far-fetched, but I think if we have to put a stamp on it, I will disagree with the overall take.
Yeah. Okay. That's a fair point of view. I share it. I'll give my thoughts. Toby, I just want to read you some of his achievements before we get your point of view. So he is a 4-time player of the season, PFA player of the season, 4-time Premier League team of the year. He has 4 Premier League titles, 1 FA Cup. He has how many League Cups? That's 6 League Cups, a Community Shield, runner-up in the Champions League, and a 3rd place in the Ballon d'Or this past year. So the way I want to pose the question to you is, if he's not the best midfielder in Premier League history, what do you think he can or should do to become the best? Like, what achievement or what do you think he needs to do in order to really cement his claim more assertively that he is the best Premier League midfielder of all time?
Bro, that's a good question. I'm not gonna lie. What shall he do?
Because he's, when you look at those achievements, it's like he's done it all.
He's done it all. That's what I'm saying. So, but this is my chop though. But that's why I can kind of understand those chops, because there's really not much more he can really do. I don't know. Win a World Cup with Belgium, but I don't think that's...
Okay, World Cup with Belgium. I like the way you're going there. I was going to ask you this before you carry on with that thought. Do you feel it's an eye test thing? And when I say that, I'm not trying to discredit KDB, the footballer, but I like the way Thabani put it in saying he's niche, because he's niche in his application, but he's also niche in the way he plays football. He doesn't have the same level of laissez-faire in the way he approaches the game. Like, if you look at the greats of the past, there's a certain level of temperament and patience they play with. KDB is more of like a force of nature. So do you think that is something that takes away from his greatness, or are you satisfied there?
No, but that's just being in a Pep side. You have a specific role, a specific niche job that you're put there to do, I guess. So do you not think maybe that whole idea of what you're saying is hindered because he's playing in a side that Pep manages?
I don't know, because you look at someone like David Silva, you look at Iniesta, Xavi. There are also people that played for Pep that had that patience I'm talking about. And this isn't me asserting my point of view. I'm just, trying to get the juices flowing. I will give my point of view once we get your views on this. So for you, Toby, from what I'm hearing, it seems like you are more open to the idea of him being the best midfielder in Premier League history, just given what he's achieved.
I'm open to it. I wouldn't say I agree. I need a little bit more, a little bit more seasons to justify. But it's not like, if someone said that to me, I wouldn't be like, nah, this guy's capping. I wouldn't say cap, the vibes. But I would say, like, I could listen
Your
to
song.
what they're saying. I could listen to their point of view. I could listen to their arguments. Be like, okay, you know what? Maybe there could be some sense in what this guy's saying. But then again, what's saying? Like, you can't just discredit what all these guys before him did. The Gerrards, the Lampards, the Scourges of this world. Like, you just have to understand that there's there's levels to this game, and what those guys were doing for Liverpool, what those guys were doing for Chelsea, for United. Like, there's levels. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a KDB fan. I am impressed with what he does. He's always trying to give his hardest in every game he plays. And yeah, and also just his journey from getting, I guess, released from Chelsea, coming back and being amazing. So for me, that's
phenomenal. That is a good point. That the uphill battle to get to this point, it wasn't guaranteed for him.
It wasn't guaranteed.
Can I just say?
Go ahead, Thabani.
To answer your question about what he needs to do, he needs to leave Man City, cross town, come win at United, and then he
will never do that.
Goat.
Never.
That is a 10 out of 10 answer.
Wait, sorry, can I ask a quick question? Very quick. So wait, can I ask a question, Thabani? So would you say that if Bellingham was to come to the Premier League, he'd have a bigger legacy than De Bruyne?
Don't get me started on Jude, man.
No, but just a quick answer.
That's his cousin. That's his cousin, dude.
Equal. I'll give you that answer. That's equal.
Damn. Okay.
Damn. Okay. No, I just wanted to get I wanted to gauge your respect.
I want to clarify. I'm not saying damn because I think you're wilding. I'm saying damn. I didn't know you dapped in like that because you said outright. Damn. Okay. No, I can appreciate standing on your own too, there, Tab, because Jude is your player. No matter what anyone else says, no matter what Kanye says, that guy is actually your oak because you've been crying for him.
And I'm playing the long game on Jude. The long game. I'm playing the 15-year game here.
15,
When do you think we'll see the best of him? Sorry, this is a bit of a detour, but like, do you think this version of Jude Bellingham, obviously players grow, they get better as they grow, but do you think this current version is the one that should persist? So being a box-to-box, high tempo, impacting every facet of the pitch, or would you like to see him refine and kind of exist in a certain segments a bit more?
I'd like to see him under an elite manager, with like truly elite players around him, and then kind of a manager. It pains me to say it, but imagine Jude under Pep. Sorry, where like, dude, you've got a role in this team. This is what we need you to do. Win. Like, imagine that. How scary is that prospect? But at the same time, like, Jude and his current guys, where it's just raw potential and like balling out, and he's just a young kid balling out at an elite level. Like, that fearless, like, I can do anything in midfield. Like, there's no opponent that I'm scared of. That, like, fearless, like, I'm a baller and I belong here. I need a few more years of that.
Okay. Yeah, good answer. You're saying you need him with an elite manager, sir. I'm here to tell you, in exactly 2 weeks, Gareth Southgate will be leading Jude Bellingham. We will see him under an elite manager, my brother, because Gareth Southgate, and I cannot wait for the episode where we break down and his influence on the Three Lions. But just going back to KDB, his best season in the Premier League was, I believe, 18-19, where he got 18-19. It was 13 goals, 20 assists, and 35 in all comps. He had 48, 16, and 23. So when you look at 48 games, 16 goals, 23 assists, when you look at those numbers, I feel like it's really hard to disprove a player like KDB, his impact on the league, and him as a footballer. The sentiments you guys have echoed, I think logically I can understand why you assert yourselves the way you do, Thabani. I could see you kept gravitating towards a player like Steven Gerrard, and a guy like Steven Gerrard, I feel for football purists, you're just going to just absolutely be in awe of his ability to literally every facet of the game, whether that's on the pitch, off the pitch, the tangibles, the intangibles. He carried a team. It's shit we grew up on that was normalized, that isn't normal anymore. So that's why I think it's not as revered, to your point of football having changed in the past 10 years. And then Tobi, I think you also make a fair point saying, Oaks, what more really can he do? Because he's kind of existing at essentially an optimal point. At the best version of himself. He's being optimal in this City team. What more can he do? And to answer both of those questions, or rather to base my response off of both of those sentiments, whenever I think of how to ascertain greatness, I feel there is no sport that does it better than basketball. And I really have derived my point of view from having listened to, the First Takes, the Shannon Sharps, all of those guys. And I really like how in basketball, not all chips are equal. Not all chips are equal. You need to take into account context. You need to take into account the journey taken to get that chip. And I feel you also need to take into account, teammates, opposition. And I feel the NBA asserts itself that way because it's a league of 30 teams. There's always been 30 teams. For the longest time, there's been 30 teams. Every year, you have a very realistic chance of being in the finals. So if you are in a dynasty, we can't dap you the same. Steph's 2 rings with KD aren't as valuable as he's the one by himself or the one with Dre and Clay in the most recent one. So I like that system. And when I look at someone like KDB, whilst I agree with what you guys are saying in that what you have to play the cards you're dealt, it's not his fault he was recruited, it's literally the perfect system. What I will say is what supplements that. And that's the shit I emphasize. So I think Tobi or Thabani touched on the fact that City won a league without him. And I think that is not a blemish, but it's okay. It's a contextual point. And with football, I feel like things like that are things you need to take note of. Like if you ask me what Neymar's biggest blemish in his career is, in my opinion, it's not joining PSG. It's not, losing that Champions League final or any of those things. It's the fact that Brazil won a Copa America without him after having played in that competition since 2013. So for me, I look at things like that because it emphasizes the extent of the machine. How efficient, how well run is this machine? City won a league, not a FA Cup, they won a league title without KDB. That is a massive point. And then the second one Tobi touched on, and that is his performance with Belgium. And Euro 2020, World Cup 2018, you're dealing with a golden era Belgium, right? Literally, the 2018 World Cup, they were top 3, top 4 favorites. And they went the distance. They went, to the semis, lost to the eventual winners. But KDB's performance, I don't know. Do you guys have standout moments for him throughout both those tournaments? In my opinion, he was being outshone by Hazard and Lukaku in both competitions. So when you now place him in context from that perspective, you can kind of see the humanity in him, in the sense of, he does bleed. Because if you look at, if I liken him to a player who I think is the greatest striker in Premier League history, Thierry Henry, right? Not only was Thierry Henry getting the awards as KDB is doing, his contribution to Arsenal was such that when he left, we never. Well, I lied, because that first season we were in the title race until like the last 3 weeks into 07-08, but we weren't the same. And at the same time, he was winning the World Cup and the Euro with France, and he's France's top goal scorer. So when you talk about KDB being the greatest of all time and the impact of super teams, these are things I look to. And I just think, I don't know, guys, for me, maybe I'm a nostalgia merchant. Maybe I'm a purist, as I consider Thabani to be. But the likes of Vieira, the likes of Gerrard, the likes of Scholes, I just don't think there's anything KDB necessarily can do to become the greatest of all time, unless he wins a treble or something of that matter, because those guys simply had to overcome things that he was handed on a plate. So that's where I sit on the debate, on the conversation. And when it comes to super teams, I always look at 2 things. I look at what comes after, because it will give you a very good understanding of what was existing before. So United, right? What came after Fergie? People were saying, did Fergie make United? Did United make Fergie? Fergie left and we got our answer. So I feel as time goes on, we will have a better understanding of this, but that's the one thing I look at. And the second thing I look at is who did you play with? And another thing that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know, guys, I feel when you are having a revamped team every 2-3 years, so you have David Silva, who is the top 5 Spaniard in the Premier League. He then leaves and you replace him with Bernardo Silva, who's a top 5 Portuguese in the Premier League, Premier League history. You then had Fernandinho, who's an all-time CDM in the Prem. You then replace him with Rodri, who's the best CDM in the Prem. It's like, at what point is it you?
No,
but maybe,
but football's changed, bro. Clubs are now looking to invest in top talent. So then no one's ever gonna outdo the previous, is what you're saying. Those guys are just gonna stay as the best forever. So no one can ever outdo them. Unless you look at your second point, which was, I guess, see what happens after they leave. So I'm guessing, is that a thing then? I don't see how because teams nowadays, they like the ultimate goal is to, I guess, build kind of a super team, to have the best players in most positions. Obviously, not every team can afford that, but like, for example, now Arsenal, they want to get the best players. They want to bring in Tonali, they want to bring in Locatelli, they want to bring in like players that improve the team and take it to another level. So I guess players like now, for example, Phil Foden, so he's automatically just ruled out of maybe one day becoming one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, or wings, or whatever position he plays. Is that essentially what you're saying? Because of the situation he's in.
I think when it comes to things like this, you then have to become very wary of narratives. I think, again, going back to the NBA, and I'm not saying this is the only way to view it. I'm just saying this is the way I view it.
Yeah.
I liken it to when Kobe won 3 with Shaq, and then people started saying Kobe can't win without Shaq, and Kobe said, "Okay, I'm leaving now." And he almost went to Chicago, but then they ended up trading Shaq. I'm not saying players have to leave good environments, good setups, but it does help. If you really want to, and again, it comes down to what's more important, your ego and like undeniably having a claim to something, or just winning things and fuck the noise, because numbers don't lie. So I'm saying all of this. If KDB wins 4 more Premier League titles, I'll probably have to shut up. But, like someone like Sadio Mane, that move to Bayern Munich, ballsy, because he left a Liverpool team. And guys, look at them. Now we know. You know what I mean? Now we have a way to kind of really ascertain Mane's contribution.
You get your daps.
You know what I mean? And it's a risk, but if it pays off, now when we talk about the greatest African player in Premier League history, Sadio Mane is there, and I don't know if Salah ranks above him. If Salah never hits 20 again in the league, Oaks, do we have Salah? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. Tab, anything you want to add? I went on a bit of a rant there.
No, I think maybe just to respond to Toby, no, we're not disqualifying, like, guys. I just think, like you said, context is important, because if you're going to default to saying like, oh, this guy's got 4 Premier Leagues and he's only 21, but again, Foden wasn't the guy for those first 2 Premier Leagues. He just wasn't, and we're not discrediting him, but obviously he's going to have more Premier Leagues than Gerrard, Vieira, Scholes, Lampard. Like, we get it. Okay, not Scholes, not Scholes.
Yeah.
But like, obviously they'll have more chips. But we're just saying, like, it takes, if you're going to be the greatest, it has to take a lot and a lot more. It takes a lot just to get to the table, and then a lot more to cement yourself. So, if we're talking about trajectories of certain guys, like, I know I made that claim about Jude, but if Jude came to the Premier League next season and he wanted to leave, he'd have to stay for 10 years, win for 10 years, but like, not win at a canter for, like, he'd have to win and fight and carry, like, because if you think about before this current era, who were the greats? Like, when we grew up, the greats were the Vieiras, the Keanes, and they weren't winning. Like, I know, like, they were winning chips, but they're renowned for what they did in games. They're renowned for how they carried and led teams. They're renowned for how they were perceived by opponents, not necessarily their chips and their trophy cabinets only. So it's just about it's that combination between on the pitch, the tangibles, but those intangibles is what defines, for me, greatness. Like, how do other people speak about you? How's the next generation going to speak about, Kevin De Bruyne? That's why he's at the table. Kevin De Bruyne is at the table and, like, eating nicely. He's at the table. But to sit at the head of that table takes a lot more than just your accolades.
Yeah. And sorry, just to interject there, I don't agree with those stats that, oh yeah, this guy's 21, he's won 4 chips. I've always said that those stats are bullshit. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Don't make sense to me. Because like as I said, as you always say, there's context. But yeah, sorry, that's what I wanted to say.
No, that's a fair point. And I think adding to Thabani's point, as football evolves, right? The later you come in anything that's been created, the more difficult it is to be considered great, and rightfully so. Because you have more access to resources and more access to precedent and information. That's why whenever we have these conversations about era, I get so annoyed when people are like, oh, XYZ, Messi was better than XYZ or Ronaldo was. Yes, they're supposed to be. They came later. Like, realistically, no one in the 80s can touch Oaks that are playing football now. Academy Oaks are probably better than certain 80s legends in their prime. But it's not a like-for-like thing. It's about context. It's about how do you amass your greatness. And Thabani's point about how do people talk about you, that's a massive one, bro, because you hear it with all the greats. Every fucking player that played in the 2000s talks about how Roy Keane scared the shit out of them. And yeah, that is a superb point. Piggybacking off of this and continuing on the topic of super teams, we have a bit of a beef within the faction of one of the greatest super teams of all time. Samuel Eto'o, who we all know is a very, 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 very petty man, had this to say when asked about Henry in leaked footage. First Jordan Poole and Draymond Green and all this. Eto'o said, I think Thierry Henry was not at the level of Anelka. TT was good, but I knew other players that I preferred. In any case, no, Thierry Henry was not at my level. Now, Thabani, do you see any validity or any real claim Eto'o has in the conversation of Henry versus Eto'o? Do you think Eto'o has a genuine shout to being considered greater than Henry all time?
Never. I don't, because of 2 reasons. One, if I look at this quote from Henry, you know, when you grow up and you watch sports and you're misled by Roger Federer and Nadal being best mates, and that's not how elite level sports works. These guys hate each other, man. Like, the idea that you're considered the greatest, but there's a guy who you think you're better than, and everyone thinks he's better than you. That'll create some resentment, especially over the years. So I definitely I see a situation where Eto'o reflects on the last 6 years of his career and just like almost has a feeling like he should have and could have done more. And what it's led to is this perception that like Eto'o and Eto'o stands cling on to the double treble, where to the point where there's 2 portions of Eto'o's career that don't stand out. The end and like the very beginning. But like prime Eto'o was prime Eto'o, and you can't take that away from him. But the second reason is, like I spoke about in the last segment, the more you hear about Thierry Henry, the more it's coming from someone who took a long time to come around to accepting Thierry Henry's greatness in the Premier League. But what Thierry Henry did in the best, and at that level, at national team level, like just the fact that, because for me, I came around on Henry when it was Henry versus Aguero in terms of the best foreign player, and what Aguero never was outright the best player on the pitch at any given time in a football match, and that's what Thierry Henry was for a large part of his time in England, and he achieved. He doubled down and he achieved what he achieved. And even though, you know, his time at Barca is up for debate, he still achieved at Barcelona. And that's someone with football acumen. You just understand when you speak to people, like you speak to people who understand the game and you hear about how they speak about Henry and you're like, okay, yeah. Whereas Samuel Eto'o was more, you know, he was a roamer. He moved around a lot. He went to different clubs. Yes, he had great success. And like I said, prime Eto'o is prime Eto'o, but I feel like Thierry Henry is more cemented at the very top, whereas Eto'o is, again, at the table, but maybe not. He's at the table with a lot of guys. I don't think Eto'o can say that Henry wasn't at his level. That's incorrect. And there's also just that bit of insecurity where if we're talking, I mean, the midfielders table, the strikers table, that's a dining hall full of guys, you know. So yeah, I disagree with Eto'o, man. He's a hater.
Toby, what I found interesting was although Eto'o's season, their first season together was hindered by injury.
Yeah.
When I looked at the stats, Eto'o in 28 games in 2007, 2008 for Barcelona, he had 18 goals, 4 assists. Henry in 47 games had 19 goals and 12 assists. And then in their second season together, where they were incredible together, you had Samuel Eto'o on from 52 games, he had 36 goals and 8 assists, and Henry had 42 games, 26 goals and 11 assists.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm pointing this out is because Thabani, said Henry's time at Barcelona was debatable, and it actually truly is. But these numbers are a lot closer than I thought they would be, right? So hearing that, do you think, because a lot of people were saying, okay, maybe Eto'o is speaking specifically to their time at Barcelona. Do you think maybe from their time together at Barcelona, Eto'o has a claim to say he's better than Henry?
Yeah. So okay, I'll play the devil's advocate situation. So, for example, I think he's not mad at saying that. I think if he just said, okay, I don't know why you had to bring in Anelka. That was the first thing. I respect Anelka, but I don't know where Anelka has to come into the situation. But for example, they're both similar levels in terms of being world-class strikers, right? And I guess when you look at his time at Barca, am I wrong? I'm right in saying that he outscored him at Barca, right?
Yeah, I'd say judging from those numbers, he did outscore him. Yeah.
So and there's also this chop that when I was reading on Twitter that this guy moved Henry back onto the wing. So that's one people. But those are Messi stands saying that's how he's better than Henry. But obviously you can't trust these Eto'o. I mean Eto'o fans. Sorry, you can't trust these Eto'o fans. But I don't know. He's not wrong in saying I understand where his hate, his bitterness is coming from, because I think even in 2019 he was speaking about how African players are just not respected in Ballon d'Or votes and all this stuff.
Yep.
So I think there's a bitterness in his heart that he's underdapped. And obviously when you talk about strikers, everyone's always just talking about Henry, and you don't really hear about Eto'o that much. But we all know that this guy at the time, he was probably at the stage, was probably one of the best strikers at a point. So there is some chops to what he's saying, but I just don't like the way he went about it. If he said oh yeah, I deserve to be in the same chat as Henry, then fair enough. But
fair enough,
in terms of shooting down Henry and then trying to put yourself up, it's just, that's what I just didn't agree with.
It's nasty work.
It's just not, I don't know what does he gain from doing it? There's nothing that he gains. But I don't know. Maybe just trying to create a debate about it and see what people said. And to my I was shocked. A lot of people actually said no, he has a right to talk. He outdid him at Barca and all this stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, no, look, with Eto'o, on this topic of conversation. Okay, first of all, the Henry playing on the wing thing was stylistic. Guardiola wanted him on the wing for the sake of his shape.
Yeah.
But the thing you touched on about African players being belittled, that's when I heard when I saw these quotes, that's where my mind went straight away, because you've had generations of this guy being overlooked, and in my opinion, this is a bit of a hot take, and I'd like to get your guys' response to this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much. I'm not even sure. Let me just be a man and say it. I don't think Suarez all time is better than Eto'o. I really don't, guys. I know Thabani's point about him hinging it on the double treble, right, is fair. But when I looked at it, he won FIFA World Player of the Year. He was third in 2005, 2 FIFA Pro 11s of the year. Obviously, the greatest African player of all time. Yeah. He was the top assister in the Champions League in 05-06 with the year he won. He scored in every final he played in the Champions League, guys. When you look at now Suarez, who is as great as he was, and I don't want to make this a Suarez versus Eto'o.
Yeah.
He obviously has a horrible Champions League record. But now, all I want to say is I could see the bitterness, because it's something that really rubs me wrong, that African players get overlooked. And I think this was an overreaction to overcompensate the fact that he does get disrespected, to kind of, but I wonder why you bring down another black man. But anyways, I don't don't agree with what Eto'o is saying. I think, all time, Eto'o had played, I think he played 70 games less than Henry or so, but Henry scored 2 more goals than him, but had 100 more assists. So it's a thing of, Henry being a more complete player. Thabani's point of being the best player on the pitch is something that Eto'o didn't boast to the same degree. But what I want to talk about now before we end this episode is, Thabani, I feel Africans have a very weird position when it comes to conversations of greatest of all time. Because, when it comes to the national team, you don't have the same level of opportunity. So I'm going to give you names, and we can do it era, but I just want to get an idea of where you would rank these guys, because these are the ones that I think are the most hotly debated. Samuel Eto'o, Yaya Toure. Where do you think Eto'o ranks all time for strikers in the 21st century? And where do you think Yaya Toure ranks all time midfielders in the 21st century? You just have to give a range, just so that I can see where you place them.
Okay, so again, off the cuff, I'll say both top 10 in their positions. And then let's focus on Eto'o. Eto'o's top 10, but I can't give him any more than that, because if we're just talking 21st century and we're talking accolades, longevity, what they did, their career paths, Eto'o's top 10. But look, I'm not an Eto'o hater, even though I should be, but like on a bad day, Eto'o's not there. On a normal day, he probably is, and on a good day, yeah, he definitely is. But on a bad day, you can give me 10 guys ahead of Eto'o, and if I'm not feeding Eto'o, then I'll accept that. Yaya Toure, I think, again, it's this thing of like your career path, and I feel like some paths and some things I feel like it's so difficult when you forget where someone came from before they were at their best. Like Yaya Toure was balling at Barcelona. Like he was a baller. How he ended up in the Prem is still a mystery. But the guy was certified before he touched down in Manchester. Like he had G14 classification before he got there. He gets to England and absolutely tears it up. He was great before his best season. Before that season, that memorable season, he was already tearing it apart. So I will put Yaya Toure. And again, how
it's tough.
It's so tough because, okay, let me put a difficult question out there. In terms of just being a complete footballer, like KDB or Toure, I might take Toure.
I'm taking Toure. I'm taking Toure too. I am.
I have to pick Toure. Like, you see what I'm saying? So I agree with you in terms of, if you go out in the street tomorrow and say KDB versus Toure, people will laugh at you. People will not take you seriously. But look at the eye test. Look at the career path. Look at the accolades. Look at what they did on the pitch. Like, if Yaya Toure was French, is this a different conversation? Of course it is.
Dude, it's funny. Can I just literally, sorry to continue with these basketball references before I take this to Toby. African players on the topic of greatest of all time are like centers. It's like, Bill Russell and Kareem and Karl Malone, but there's a hesitancy to assert them in that conversation because of caveats. Obviously, although there are different caveats, it's like in basketball, you don't want to put Bill Russell in the top 5 because he didn't really have the same level of accolades as Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. But he couldn't necessarily do that because he was, held back by his position. Now, with African players, if half of these guys were French, bro, if Yaya Toure was playing for France, if Drogba played for France, if Eto'o played for France colonized different, but if Eto'o played for France, different conversation we're having. And I think the hesitancy we feel will say a lot more freely. So now, Toby, do you feel that Africans have to do more to get the same level of depth when it comes to all-time greatness?
Yeah, well, yes. That's very true in a lot of different aspects. Like what Thabani said with Yaya Toure, if he was French, he probably would have got a lot more. But like, I don't know. I think maybe as time goes on now, we'll start to see a much bigger difference. And I say that just because of players like Mane. What is he in the top 3 for the Ballon d'Or? Players like, I guess, Mendy, did he not win a the last Ballon d'Or, did he not win keeper of the tournament or something like that? I know it's not.
Yes, for the Champions League.
Yeah, for the Champions League. But like, I think Salah, he's also was top something. So I think like, as the times go by, like now, I think we'll start to see a lot more African players getting more accolades and getting more respected than in the olden days, or back in the old days, shall I say. But you guys are correct. I'm not going to lie. I think if most of these players were French and if their name were, something French, they would be more respected. But but it's an interesting conversation. Maybe one for another day.
Yeah.
Might be definitely an interesting topic to get into. I don't know.
No, for real. Because even if you look at your uncle JJ, Okocha, no, like honestly, no. Because guys, the thing that again, and we'll close this scene, but the thing that really bugs me about this topic of conversation is when we were young, there were so many players of European descent that were thrown into that conversation of greatest of all time, despite not having accolades or the same level of accolades. The first person that comes to mind, no disrespect, may he rest in peace, is George Best. I think George Best, what he achieved at United is incredible. He's a transcendental player. But there was that, I don't know if you guys have ever heard the chants about Pele, Maradona, and then George. No, it was Pele, it was Maradona, Cruyff, and then Georgie Best. There's that chant about listing the greatest of all time. And it seems with like European players, full call can carry them to the title of being the greatest or one of the greatest. Full call and Revere can get them to the point of being icons in FIFA and Ultimate Team. But with African players, JJ Okocha, Thabani, if you talk about what players say about someone, look no further than JJ Okocha. Listen to what Ronaldinho says about Okocha. Listen to the way Brazilians embraced Okocha because of the way he played football, the way he literally carried a whole continent on his shoulders. But if you now say, if I ask you top 10 left midfielders in Premier League history, if we go on the streets and we say JJ Okocha, we will get laughed at. So it's like, yeah, maybe that's a topic for another episode. But before we close, Tobi, just wanted to say, top 10. Where do you rank Eto'o all time and Yaya Toure all time?
I was gonna say top 10.
Top 10 for both.
Both of them, yeah. That's what I was gonna say. It's very difficult. It's actually very tough. Even that KDB Yaya Toure question that Thabani put forward, even now you have to start thinking about it and saying who would you actually pick? Both of them are amazing players. It reminds me of myself back at school, but for another day.
People that saw you play at Red Hill don't need a reminder.
Bro, you know what? I tell these others, I scored 5 goals in one. Oh, let me not talk. I'll be back.
I think it also raises the question: which is more impactful, the trailblazer or the guy who picks up where the trailblazer left off? Because I think that's what's being discussed in Yaya versus KDB, specifically for City. In terms of the question, I would have Eto'o top 7 all time for this century strikers, and I'd have Yaya Toure top 6. Yeah, guys, any closing remarks, any special shout outs you want to give? Thabani, you can hit us up with yours.
I think my special shout out for this week is going to be an unconventional one. I'm going to give credit to Mr. Nagelsmann at Bayern Munich, because all but 3 weeks ago, I made a claim that his job was not 100% secure. From what I was reading in the German media, I think they drew 3 Bundesliga games, which happened for the first time in who knows how long. And it was just a bit shaky, but I think he just decided, you know what, it's time to be serious. And since then, Bayern have been on a flyer. So I'm going to shout out Mr. Nagelsmann this week. Long may it continue. I do have them as my Champions League winners. I just want to put that on the pod for when we win the Champions League. But yeah, shout out.
Yeah.
Tobi?
Yeah, that's a good shout out from Jürgen Thabani, the German journalist.
Nah. He's getting that German passport. Yeah.
That German passport. But yeah, for me, it's obviously going to be the Nigerian king, Victor Osimhen. He's having the Italians are chanting his name, Nigerian name. Oh my days, what a day! What they're chanting a Nigerian guy's name, you know. We're up. Nigeria is up. But yeah, for me, hat trick on the weekend, and he's cool, calm, collected, a nice chip for the third goal. But yeah, that's my shout out to the man, Victor. What I'm worried about though now is his transfer fee. It's going to be touching at least 100 plus. So
yeah, it's good. It's going to be crazy.
We can afford
it'll
it.
be insane.
We can afford it. Don't worry. We can afford it.
Our pockets are deep.
I saw our friend to the podcast, Lesiba, pose the question: why the fuck did we not sign Osimhen, and why did we sign Nunes? Because it's the same price, same transfer fee, but one, I guess, had the Latino flavor. The other didn't.
No, can I just tell you what happened? Right, Klopp has experienced, the height of his success at Liverpool on African roots in Mane and Salah, and I think part of his transition, I'm sure someone whispered in his ear. He said, "Guys, let's go to South America." Because now hedge their bet on this bust that is Darwin Nunes, and he's gonna regret that.
Darwinito, my stocks are up, but I want to say, guys, because we're actually over. My shout out is to the one and only, having just discussed him, Jurgen Klopp. Keep giving us the content, my sir. You will never hear this, and that's fine. But keep giving us the breakdowns. Keep giving us the content. Keep. I don't know if you saw, he had another scrap with reporters today at his press conference. I am enjoying every second of this Liverpool capitulation. Fukani, Lesiba, I hope you guys are going to bed crying. And Kaya as well. Although Kaya's, he told me he doesn't. Look at him. He's deviated from Liverpool. Look what they've done. He said he doesn't watch them as much anymore.
Yeah.
But no, that is episode 9 of D&D. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Till next time, we'll see you then. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Cheers.